Hello, everyone. Welcome back to New York Talk. This is the Scout Report, and we're going to time to look ahead. This time it is a trip to the seaside and Blackpool. We have Tom joining us today. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Very, very good. And this is from Not the Orange podcast, which we'll put the links in below. Right, let's go back. Kind of run through your last couple of years. We last met each other back in the terrible 0-0 draw in a very cold March, which obviously ended in relegation. Just talk us through how it's been the last 18 months or so. You're still in League One, is it? Just talk us through how it's been so far.
Yeah, it's been 18 months of an inconsistent style of football. Critchley, specifically over sort of last season. When you look at the table, you think, you've had a fairly decent season, but we spoke about it last time. The away form, I know you can relate to it, was diabolical, and literally like 5 wins away from home would have seen us comfortably in the playoffs. But we didn't really have a spine and identity, and we didn't really have a pattern of signings that will make us better for the future as well. So, a few loans added quality with the likes of Karamoko Dembele, now plays for QPR, Hayden Coulson, who has signed permanently, but at the time, they were Jordan Rhodes, who got 15 goals in the first half of the season, then hasn't scored since. So it's just been not consistent and somewhat enjoyable, but it's honestly, specifically been away from home, been quite hard to watch. Don't mean to sound all negative, but it's been a hard couple of years, especially with the relegation thrown in there and not finding that consistent sort of pattern of wins to make the fans, on their travels enjoy the football club.
Yeah, let's talk about Neil Critchley, because obviously when he was here first time around, things were brilliant. Obviously, he got you the promotion. I remember the vibe around the club felt negative towards him because obviously he took an assistant manager's job. Just talk about him coming back in, because when somebody leaves like that and maybe not the best circumstances for some fans, it can be very difficult for a manager to come out. I was surprised to see him come back in from the outside. How was that when he came back in originally?
Difficult, because a lot of fans hated how he left without the thank you and the goodbye, and he loved the club apparently more than most, and we had a connection with him that we haven't had in decades in a manager, since Ollie. And it was good. It was really good. He had us playing really well. He was really well thought through with his games, etc. But he left for Villa, and then there was nothing there. And then when he came back, he did an interview to basically apologise. And credit to Andy Bays. If you ever go back and watch the interview, not that interests you, but he really grilled him, and he was just basically said that he was persisted to say, why did you do it? Why this? Why that? And it made him feel really uncomfortable till he answered. And ultimately he wanted the opportunity to go manage somewhere else with players like they had at Villa, and that's somewhat understandable. And when you get quadruple, maybe a little bit less of your wage back, you make those choices. When he came back, he was determined. He was not arrogant, but he was confident. And then the football, unfortunately, that followed wasn't as good as last time, and it wasn't as consistent as last time. And he never changed system despite it continually showing signs of being absolutely diabolical. So it came to it had a bit of a bright spark towards the end of the season when we nearly made the playoffs. Some games were hard, like we beat Carlisle 1-0, I think it was. They nearly equalised, but they're the worst team I've seen in League One for many a year. So we won games like that, but it wasn't great. And then the start of this season, there was a fans forum. We were, he said he'd learnt from last campaign. We played Crawley, we were appalling. We played Stockport, lost 3-0. We looked a mess, and he left the following Tuesday. So he left with Blackpool fans happy that he's gone and never to return, basically. And I'm in that boat. As much as I wish him well in life, as a Blackpool manager, I don't want to see him there again.
With the second story in the season, is the question to be asked on the board why it wasn't done earlier, or do you think it was fair that it was kind of given at least something this season and then the decision was made at the right time?
I think if you had to sack him, it had to be really early, like the board did. I don't think the board planned very well for his follow-on appointment, but I would have sacked him probably halfway through last campaign when we can't beat the likes of Port Vale, Burton, Leyton Orient without having a shot on goal. Basically, it was beyond embarrassing, and those fans that experienced like a 3-0 at Port Vale, who are bottom of the league, it was honestly indescribable, and it was some of the away fans' worst games they've watched as Blackpool fans. So I don't know how we survived some of it last season. I think it was because the home form, we were in the top 3 all season.
Yeah.
So therefore he obviously clung on to that. And that's, that's fair enough. We nearly made the playoffs, but alas, it wasn't to be, and it came to a natural end.
Before we talk about Brucey coming in, just talking about the preseason expectations. We said on our show that we think there are about 14 teams that think they could be in and around the playoffs this year. Were you one of those teams that were kind of hoping? Because I see you were not far off last year.
Yes, just because the way that our owner talked and Critchley talked and some of the signings we made, it's hard to argue that we shouldn't be making top 6 because we arguably signed better players on paper, or have the squad to sort of do it again. But if you watched us throughout the campaign, it's been hard because Bruce came in and obviously I know we're going to talk about that in a second, we won like 4 in a row and we were 1 minute away from Lincoln at home winning 1-0. We drew 1-1 to go in second. So the expectations and the talk from the club are absolutely of playoffs, and they still are. The performance on the pitch and the squad depth probably doesn't suggest that. I don't think we're good enough for playoffs, just based on squad at the moment until January. And I believe Bruce can do it because he's got that ilk. But at the start, I definitely expected better.
Yeah. Steve Bruce coming in, again, that seems an odd appointment. I know he's been on a bit of a downward spiral because he's not done well at West Brom and other places like that, but that seems a pretty good appointment in League One, to be honest. Was it viewed positively when he came in?
Go back to the tweet. I think it has 3 million interactions, and it's half of them are Newcastle fans. 2 million of them, the Newcastle fans, were on there just saying good luck. Basically, it's horrible football, etc. The way I balanced it out was in pure shock. We did a pod literally 15, 20 minutes after, and we kind of sat pre-pod just in silence, thinking Steve Bruce is Blackpool's manager. And when you see some of that historic nature in football, you think it's a hell of a name to bring in. I think on the balance of things, I was really excited. We kept the 2 coaches, Richard Keogh and Stephen Dobby, who I absolutely adore as players, and they know how to play football as attacking and defensive coaches. But we now have the worst defensive record in the league, so that hasn't worked out so much. But yeah, I think if on the face of it, he knows football. Whether he's got the ability to be as good as the likes of Wellens and others is still to sort of portray. But I mean, look, we have to see where he is after January, because if he can make some decent signings and build a squad that he wants, he absolutely has shown signs of recovery. He had an awful tragedy, which we lost all momentum, and it was really hard for the club. But we looked at a shadow of our former 4 games. In the 5 games we didn't get a win in, which led us to be 14th, 15th again. Back-to-back wins recently and a couple of clean sheets. It's looking a little bit better, but with 9 or 10 players out at the moment, it's hard for him, and it's hard for the fans to watch.
Yeah, you don't maybe hope that in January he's got a bit of a pull on it. So in the transfer market, these experienced players might want to come and back play for him or whatever else. So that might help you in the window. Hopefully for you guys. Talk to me about your kind of setup and style of play. Is it classic old school Steve Bruce, or is there a modern tinge to it? What we're looking at?
4-4-2 is what he immediately brought in from Critchley's 5-3-2, 3-5-2 system. He worked the wings really well, but CJ Hamilton has been injured for the last sort of 6 weeks. He played a couple of games coming back. He was a revelation under Bruce after being absolutely dog poo for the whole of last season, really. Bit of a scapegoat from fans, including Mars of the pod. He played wing back. He was an outlet, but he's a winger that played wing back, so it was Critchley's fault. I think he played that badly. But we've got Rob Apter on the other side, who had a fantastic season with Tranmere last campaign. He's a young talent. He's playing a lot of football at the moment. He does look a bit tired. He plays right wing. We play someone on the left wing because we've got many injuries at the moment. Central midfield of now Norburn, who's back from suspension, absolutely phenomenal player. Went on his day and wasn't great last season. Plays with Lee Evans, who's rated, very highly on socials with statistics and stuff at the moment. Been a bit off form, but recently Albie Morgan, who started last night, got type 1 diabetes, so he was out. So Lee Evans had absolutely no natural partner with him, so it's been a bit hung out to dry. But the Norburn-Evans combination has worked really well. I do think we could go to a 3 with Morgan, Norburn and Evans in there, but for now it will be probably Norburn and Evans on Saturday in that central midfield against your 3, maybe 2 sort of. It will be a decent, I know you said you don't use the midfield a lot, but it'll be a decent combination in there with a Dauphin to how Norburn combats him and how Lee Evans can impact sort of getting in behind to to attack your team. So so 4-4-2 defense is usually pretty decent, but we've shipped a lot of goals when Bruce went, and it was really difficult to watch. Defensively a mess, but the players in the defense are very good. Ollie Casey at centre back's been fantastic. Adela Fire, who's on loan from Brighton, was fantastic at right back. So we may go back there Saturday with Casey coming back from suspension, and a left back of Husband, who is very well versed at this level. Not very good at long balls, but very good defender.
Fair enough. Let's talk about how you think the game's going to. So, how do you predict the game's going to play out, and what would be your score prediction for Saturday afternoon?
Judging by what you said in terms of the ball being in the air a lot, and I watched you versus Charlton, a lot of time, I think like 17 minutes, the ball was on the floor, the rest of it was in the air or something silly. So, I mean, if we get sucked into your style of play, I think Adela Fire and Casey, whoever plays centre back, maybe Pennington, can handle Clark Harris if you play the ball long to him. But if you get the ball to his feet and he gets that yard of space, you're very likely to create chances. It's just whether you're brave enough to do that. If you play the ball in the air, like you say, it's probably going to be a scrappy set piece from either side with Evans' delivery and the other height you've got in the box. So I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think it'll be very pretty, and I don't think either fan base will like it. It's about that little bit of quality on the day. If you taste blood first and you get that first goal and you gain a bit of confidence, you could kick on. But likely, if we actually do start hitting the net a bit more, especially at home against Barnes, we had 3 or 4 chances we should have put them away. Lincoln was the same. We had 6 chances that could have been goals. So if we score early, I'll be confident. The more the game goes on, though, I fear a 0-0 or a 1-0 loss incoming, because we've drawn 4 and we haven't found that winning formula yet at home.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Tom, for doing this. We'll chuck the links out for It's Not an Orange. It's not Orange podcast. I thought I read it right.
That's it, mate. That's spot on.
Make sure everybody's watching. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and give the video a thumbs up as well. We will see you all next time. And as always, up the Millers.